Hello, this is Paul with the Oak and Knight, bringing you what I think is going to be my last in my series on Rally Around the Flag Corps Command by Lost Battalion Games. What we have in front of us is the setup for the very first turn of the game, and what I propose to do is to do a playthrough of at least of a couple turns showing you how I play the game. Now, how I play the game is very different than what's in the rule books. Started with what was in the books, of course, but I have extended it in a number of ways that I hope to demonstrate for you here. My earlier demonstration that's out on my channel shows you was about the fourth version of the rules that I put together, and this is more like about the eighth version. So I've been at this a while and hopefully have it so that everything is working nicely. We've got the card set up. We've got the card shuffled. The Confederate player has 6 cards. Unit player has 7 per the abilities of the leaders in charge. Here we have A.P. Hill for the Confederates, and Reynolds, who is over here, is in charge for the Union. So what I think I'm going to do is just start, and we will walk through things as we go. All right. As you'll see, I've made up a number of play aid charts that are going to help us through this, and I find them to be almost essential when you're playing the game. First thing is resolve events. Confederate player is always the very first to go, and I haven't even looked at what they have in their hand yet. What kind of events or what kind of things do they have? Supplies arrive is an event that is artillery supplies arrive. This is going to give +1 to artillery shots. Forget about what's in the rule book. Any other events? Okay. Supplies arrive is not an immediate event. It's a discretional event, and so we could play it in the resolve events phase, but I think for now we're going to keep it in the hand. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to activate a general. We're playing no events, activating a general. First step is to set the action point marker equal to the activation rating of the general. And I can tell you just from having done this many times, the number is for A.P. Hill is 6. Okay, so A.P. Hill has 6 action points to be used during this turn. Next thing we do is discard and draw cards. All right, well, we have 6. That is a full hand. However, we are required to draw at least 1 card a turn. So it means we have to discard something, and I think the supplies arrive card is a handy card to get rid of. We're not really going to make use of it. So we're going to discard that. We're going to draw a new card, and we get, looks like a cavalry card. Okay. Basically a defensive card with some possibilities to be used against skirmishers. All right, that's what we got. So we've discarded and drawn. And we have not emptied our hands, so we are not at the end of turn condition. Just be aware that the 3rd Corps command card, per the scenario rules, is seated into the 3rd position in the deck. We pick 1. We know it's 2 more farther in the deck. So we actually have kind of a choice. We could dump 3 cards, and then we could draw 3 cards, because the draw ability of A.P. Hill is 3. But then we're kind of wasting time in a sense. Cards are time. Time is cards. So do you want A.P. Hill do you want Heath to wait until Pender shows up, or do you want him to just go in with what he's got? And I think what we're going to do is go in with what we've got. Here's the situation. We are at the Cashtown Pass. Yep, Cashtown Pass. And we've got Buford opposing us at the Unfinished Railroad. First step, move the general. General's actually in with all his troops. No reason or even much capability to move out of there. He's got Yankees right in front of him, so he's going to do nothing. Now we're going to start paying these action points to start doing things. And those things we're going to be doing is simply going to be to move Heath's 2 brigades plus the Heath artillery into the Unfinished Railroad. So it's going to cost 1, 2, 3, and that's 1, 2, 3. Now I do want to comment, this is the Corps Command Board. Generally speaking, I play this on the Division Command Board. The boards are identical except for these numbers here, which I use as a defensive modifier in how I do things. All I do is I make a separate note when I play on the division map, and so I just look them up and see what they are. So what we've done here, let's see, we've activated, we've moved infantry one area, and we've done that 3 times. We've done the same with artillery, with the artillery one area, and now as the final thing we get to do, the general can join troops that have moved. Okay, he had his own movement as far as phase 3 of the round. Since there was nobody, there were no friendlies in front of him, he couldn't go. But now he's going to go in with his troops. He gets to join any one group of troops that he's moved. All right, so now we got a lot of guys bumping into each other at the unfinished railroad. We're going to put down a battle marker and move on to phase 5, which is the battle. Note that I have swapped phases 5 and 6 from what's in the rule book. I believe it works better this way, and you'll see how I handle command cards, how this is all going to come together. So combat is phase 5 instead of phase 6. The other thing that I've changed is that opposing troops never ever end a round in the same area. Somebody's always evicted from an area. We do not have musketry fire going on outside of the full battle sequence. Now, if we look at the battle sequence, we're in the unfinished railroad. The unfinished railroad is a 1-point defensive area. Terrain density modifier, as I refer to it, will be 1. There we are. Therefore, we are on battle map 1, and there will be adjustments to combat based on that 1 rating. We are going to set the defenders up first. We've done that. We're going to set the attackers up in matching column. We're only using 1 column. There's only 1 real defending unit. We have Buford and his horse holders, so there will only be 1 column. The attacker chooses the column. Well, it's the only column there is, so we're up through the first 3. Play formation cards, phase 4. Here is the Confederate hand. Notice we only have Pender for a 3rd Corps card. Remember, I do use the designations on the cards, such as Pender's division, as a key unit modifier. We do not have Heath. We do not have Heath's card, so we do not have a key unit. Probably the best we can do, and I think what we should do, what I would do in this circumstance, is probably pick Pickett, because he's got an assault modifier of +2. On all his attack rolls, he has a select 3, which is unconditionally granted. There's no formation requirement in order for this to be in effect. And so we're going to have an assault. The Union cards. Notice we do not have Buford's 1st Cavalry Division card, so we're going to have to go a different way. We also do have the Reserves Allied Corps card, which is a mandatory play card, but not until the Union actually has their end of the turn, as their first phase. So this card will be the first thing they play once they have control of the turn. Other than that, we're going to be hunting for a card that might be good. Okay, here's a 6 Corps card, and we don't have the 6 Corps here or coming. That would be a candidate. You know, I'm going to pick that just for grins. Okay, this will be the card for Buford. He's got a 2 extra on defense. He's got a select 3, which is a good thing. That means he'll get to roll 3 dice. Let's go with it. Here's our situation before we reveal cards. And here's what we have now. We have the Confederates in an assault attack formation. The defenders are in a skirmish. There is no conditional modifiers. All the modifiers are really unconditional. Both are select 3. Confederates have a +2 on their assault. The defense has a +2. Let's see how this works. But for now, we go over here, and we have played our formation. Next, both sides may bombard. So let's see how that works. First thing to notice is both sides. First thing to notice is that only the Southerners have artillery, so we will only be worried about that. Here's a play card I made up just for this situation. This is Battleboard Artillery Bombardment. Both sides would do it simultaneously, except that the Northerners don't have any artillery. All right, so what do we do? Well, we know that Buford's got 3 in his stand, so that's going to be -3. Terrain density, that is that 1. That's the unfinished railroad. We're on Battleboard 1. Because the unfinished railroad is rated 1 for defense, that's going to be -1. Heroism, we've got A.P. Hill there, he's a +1. Defender bombardment, that's not used. Only the attacker gets an advantage for firing battleboard artillery. That would be a +1 if the Yankees were shooting. Shooter key unit modifier, nothing matches the artillery. We have actually a first corps card, not a third corps card. So we will not be having any key unit modifiers this battle. Shooter fire modifier off the battle card, that would be our +2. So we're going to put 2 here. That's a +2. Shooter conditional fire modifier, we have no conditional fire modifiers. We have an unconditional select 3, so nothing. Okay, so the fire is, see, that's a -4 and a +3, so the net out is -1. And if we look at Heath's artillery, we see the fire value is 6. All right, so let's go back over here. Fire rating is 6. So we're going to roll a 2d6. We're going to subtract off 1 on a minimum effective fire. He needs to roll at least a 6 modified. So in plain English, he needs to roll a 7 in order to have any effect. 7 minus 1 will be a 6. Here we go. And we see that we rolled a 9 for the Confederates. So 9 minus the 1 is going to be an 8. The factor we were shooting for was a 6. So yes, that was an effective fire. It met the 6 minimum requirement, and it exceeded by 2. That's going to be a -2 for the differential. Now, what does this mean? That is not necessarily a hit. It's simply an effective fire. Now we're going to see if the cavalry actually takes a hit. In Rally Round the Flag, this is referred to as a military discipline check as opposed to morale check, which is what just about every other game I know about refers to it as. We see the discipline rating is a 9. Remember, this is upside down, so that is not a 6, that is a 9 for Beaufort's cavalry. All right, so we exceeded the minimum to hit by 2, so that's going to be a -2. The more you exceed it by, the harder it is to pass the check. There are no friendly units routed here. This is not a passage of lines test that does not apply. Beaufort has not lost any figures yet. There is no leaders nearby for him, no leadership help. He is not a key unit. He's not defending breastworks, and this is not the town of Gettysburg on July 1st. So the total mods are -2. And simply looking at his stand, we see that the military discipline is a 9. 9 minus 2, 7. Maximum passing roll. Big is bad in this, so maximum passing roll is a 7. 7 or less is good. Let's see what we get. Rolled a 6. That means the morale check is passed, the military discipline check is passed. So while it was a dangerous shot that hit him, he managed to shrug it off, and he's going to continue on without losing any steps. That brings us up to volley fire. Now, unlike in the rules as written, I've merged the 2 volley phases effectively. The rules as written say that the defender gets to shoot with his front 2 ranks. The shots take full effect, then the attacker gets to fire. I found that to be too harsh in my opinion. Again, this is how I play the game. So what I've done is that the first 2 stands on both sides get to shoot, have full effect, and then if there's a second stand for the defender remaining, then he will get his shot by himself. All right, so we're going to have simultaneous shots between the defender and the attacker in this instance. Okay, stepping through this, we have 2 3-point stands shooting at each other, so they're both going to have -3. You take the number of figures in the opposing stand, that's what you put in your column. Neither side has lost any figures. Neither shooter has lost any figures, so they're fine. We're not shooting at unsupported artillery, so this does not apply. Terrain density, -1. Only the attacker is affected by the terrain. Defender is not affected by the terrain. Shooter modifier. The Confederates have a nice happy red 2 on their assault card, so that's the offensive modifier. That's +2. The defenders have a nice happy blue 2 on theirs, so that is 2 for them. conditional modifiers, we both have select 3 unconditional modifier, so there's nothing here that's conditional that's going to modify these rolls. Shooter key unit modifier, we have neither side has a key unit. It would require an exact match between the card and the unit shooting for that to occur. And finally, shooter leader heroism, only the Southerners have a leader. When we net everything out, we have -4 + 3, so -1 for the Confederates, and a net of -1 for the North. Firepower rating for the Southerners is a 6, for the North is a 3. And the way this works, both sides have a select 3, but they only get to use it one time. So if they use it now, they will not get to use it later. Personally, I find having that extra benefit in a melee is where I prefer to use it unless there's something unusual going on. This is rather vanilla, so both sides are going to roll 2d6, and we're going to see what happens. All right, here's the results of our combat. The Southerners rolled a 5. Remember, it was at a -1, so it was a 4, and they were shooting for a 6 or more. That is an ineffective shot. The Northerners rolled a 7, -1, which is what they had, is a 6, shooting for a 3. Buford's cavalry are very deadly guys. They're probably the most deadly guys in the game. So they've exceeded the minimum by 3. Now we have to do a military discipline check on Heath. So what we have, Heath's lead brigade is checking at a -3 because the roll to hit above the minimum to hit was 3. We have no routed units in the column. We have not lost any figures off of this stand. Leader is present for a +1. Nothing else applies. The net is -2. The military discipline of Heath's stand is a 9. He's shooting for a 7 as the maximum he can roll and still pass. A 10 is rolled. That means that the military discipline check is failed, and so Heath's lead unit is going to take a hit and run. Because he's running, the unit following will have to make a military discipline check, unmodified by the 3-point differential from the previous shot. Let's set that up. In this case, I put the changes in green so you could easily see them. We now have a routed unit in the column. That's going to be a -1 for this check. We have not lost any stands or any figures off the second stand. We still have a leader, which is +1. We don't have any key units, so all that stays the same. So the difference is we have a -1 where we had a 0, and we have a 0 where we used to have a -3. So the net now is -1 + 1, 0. The stand has a 9-point MD rating. We're rolling for a 9. 9 or less is good. Here we go. And we rolled a 6. So the second stand, the 4th Brigade, according to what's on the stand here, passes its check. Since it passes, there's no further cascading of the morale effect of the other unit running. So this fire phase is now over. Both sides have fired in the volley phase. The Union had an effective hit. The Confederates had no effect. We did take a hit and have a rout occur because of the hit on one of Heath's brigades. We're done with the volley fire, and now we're up to play the battle cards. So why are we playing battle cards? Because the attacker gets to begin a sequence where both sides get to add cards. They may or may not want to do this. One reason to do this is that if you have more than one rank coming in, you're not guaranteed that the second, third, fourth ranks are actually going to come into this melee. They may stay out. Only for the attacker. The defender is guaranteed of having everybody in the melee. Really, the only unit at risk for not coming in at this point is the artillery, so I don't think that is a major consideration at this point. However, we may want to see what kind of cards we have that could be to our advantage. All right, we look in the southern hand, and we do not have a card that would allow us to have a key unit. We have no match with Heath. We don't have Heath's card. Even if we did, it'd be too late. The only card that counts for key unit is the formation card, the very first card you play. So none of these can get us that. However, I'm thinking that we should give it a try. We don't know what cards the Union has. We do have a conditional match here. The Union is in skirmish formation. This card, while it has no other benefit, it is a +2 versus skirmish. Just to pull some cards out, let's give it a shot. Maybe this will help. The conditional card, the second card goes behind the first. The formation is going to be assault throughout this whole battle. All right, now we have to look at the Union hand. Well, I will note that we have the very best card versus an assault that you can have. At least I think it is. Certainly one of them. This is a conditional versus assault of +3 and a native one of 1. So this would be worth 4 points in a melee. That's a powerful card. It would take this card. This is a first corps card. This is the Iron Division, the Iron Brigade / Division's card. We use it here. We won't have it for the rest of today. So that's a downside. However, oh, well, we could use this guy. All right, tell you what. It may not be the best choice, but let's give it a shot. We're going to preserve this card for later possible use. And we are going to throw the second division card, which is still a +1 in assault and has a 2-pointer. So we're going to use this card. Remember, what we're doing is alternating cards. So this keeps going until somebody passes is the general rule. Let's see, it looks like the Union won that exchange by a point. It's going to be up to the Southerners to decide whether they want to continue this by playing another card or passing. If they were to pass, that would end this sequence. Looking at the cards that the Southerners have, I think since we already have Select 3 out there, these Select 3s are not as much beneficial as they might be. +2 versus Skirmish, well, we already lost one of those exchanges. The Roll 2 card, getting 2 rerolls is nice, but it's not providing any further attack power. I think we've reached the point of diminishing returns. I think we're going to say pass as the Southerners and let this go to attacker must pass the ranks. All right, attacker must pass the ranks. What that means is everybody behind, each unit behind the first unit has to make a military discipline check based on their position. These guys are in the second position. That's going to be a -1 modifier. I can just see that it's going to be, we got one routed guy in the column. We are in the second position. That's -2. The leader is going to be +1. So that's 7 military discipline for the unit. It's going to be a 6. So the Southerners need to roll a 6 or less for the artillery to participate in the melee. If they don't do it, if they don't make the roll, they're not routing. They're just not in the melee. They really, really don't want to be in this melee. So they hang back, and we're going to calculate. We're going to go to the melee phase and calculate it based on what we have here in front of us. Okay, we are now at the melee phase. What we do is we fill in yet another one of these handy-dandy play aids. So, as follows. The Southerners, they have 3 figures in the melee. No one else stuck around long enough to be involved, so that's going to be 3 points. We have a fire modifier from the battle card. We have 2 on the assault card that we had right on the formation card from the beginning. Conditional modifier, yes, we had the +2 skirmish card that we followed it up with. Key unit, we don't have that. Heroism, we have the leader. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of total strength. On the northern side, we have 3 points. The unit in back is actually, he doesn't count for strength. He's a horse holder. He's available to take a hit, but he's not really a strength point. So the Northerners have 3 strength points. Right there. Terrain density, that is we're on battle board 1. It's a 1. Fire modifier based on the battle cards. All right. We started with 2 and we followed it up with another 2. So that's 4. 4 straight off the cards. Conditional, nothing. Oh, we had the +1 versus assault, and the attacker is assaulting. That's a 1. Key unit, we don't have that. We don't have a leader. So 5, 6, 9. 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. All right, so it is 8 points for the South, 9 points for the North. All right. Both sides have a select 3. Both sides have a select 3. Both are going to use it right now. Okay, so both sides are rolling 3 dice, and they're going to take the best 2 out of the 3 dice that they roll. And here's the dice as they fell. Notice that the 2 ones are not going to count. Both sides have an identical 7. Since the Union had a 1-point advantage to begin with, they are going to win by 1. Here it is filled in. Both sides got 7 points. Southerners have a total of 15, Northerners a total of 16. Difference is 1. North wins. What does this mean? The difference is not double or more of the strongest stand in the melee, the one with the most figures. Then it's going to be a 1-point hit and a morale check. If it were double or more the strongest stand that the South had, so they got a 3-point unit here, three figures. It would have taken a 6-point differential. If that were to happen, it would have been 2 hits and an automatic rout for the lead unit. So we take 1 hit. And now we roll for morale. So that's going to be a military discipline check. So we have -1 as far as we have a routed unit in the column already. That was from the fire phase. We have a hit on the stand. That was from the melee. The stand that's checking is -1 here. We exceeded the minimum by 1. Otherwise, a 0 would have been a tie melee. That's a different thing. So it's -1. We have a leader, so it's +1. The net's -2. 9-point military discipline unit. Maximum passing roll is a 7. So a 7 or less on 2 dice is going to pass. And we rolled a 4. So we passed the test. Now, if the Southerners had blown this test, they've already taken their hit. They're not going to take another hit if they miss this roll. What that would happen is that they would be running, and then we would have a cascading rout possibly affecting the artillery. The artillery would then have to check, and if it blew its check, then it would be destroyed. It would be set as they would take its hit, and it would be set aside, and the leader would have to roll for casualties. A.P. Hill could possibly be a casualty. As it is, the Southerners lost this melee. The first thing that happens when you lose a melee, again, there's 2 melee rounds, as per the normal rules, but you can decide to have an orderly withdrawal. The loser can decide to have an orderly withdrawal. The North can, or the winner can then decide to have an orderly withdrawal if he so chooses, and the loser did not take advantage of that. And in this case, we're going to say the Southerners want the heck out of here. This is not looking good, and there's no reason why we want to chance losing artillery and having A.P. Hill be a casualty. So they're going to lick their wounds. They're going to go back to where they came from. Here we are back on the main map. We see Buford is back defending the unfinished railroad. He has no hits. He did his work. Both of Heath's brigades, both of his stands have a hit each. That's just the way it worked out. All right, so that would be the Southern impulse. Now, what they can do if they had any leadership cards, okay, is that they could play, at this point the battle is done, they could now play a command card if they had one. Now we know they don't have one. The only command card that is in the game for them on turn 1 is Third Corps, and by scenario rule we know it's in the 3rd position. It's two cards farther down in the deck. The South used 2 cards that turn. They have 4 cards, so they will have to draw up to their 6 because A.P. Hill has a maximum draw of 3. So he's got to fill up his hand, and so we know that the Third Corps command card is going to be drawn in the next Confederate impulse. But for right now, we have the North. The first phase is resolve events, and as we know, in their hand, they have the reserves arrive a card, which is a mandatory play card. That's right out of the rules as written. So resolve events. You could play discretionary events here, but since we have a mandatory one, since we have a mandatory event, that has to be played now. Note that the first turn of the game, the first impulses of the game, is the only time this can happen. Normally, when you have a mandatory play card, you have to play it immediately when you draw it. So in the normal course of the game, mandatory play cards are going to be played when cards are drawn, because you get it in your hand, and it's got to get out of your hand right away. But because this is the first turn of the game, This was just a card that was dealt to the north and has to be resolved now. All Reserve Survive does is this card goes in the discard pile, and they have a deck of reserve cards. It takes one card out of the reserve deck, puts it in the discard pile right along this one, so that next turn's hand is going to be one card bigger. It's going to have a reserve card in it. So just for grins, I'll show you what it is. Here's a reserve card. Typically, they're going to be one in attack, one in defense, and they typically link to an artillery unit as far as having that for a key unit. And right now we know this is an artillery reserve card. So this card is not going to have any key unit impact for a long time. All right, so both these cards are going to go in the discard. Step 2, select a general. Well, that's kind of easy. There's only one active general on the map. That would be Reynolds. So we set his action points. He gets 7. That's just who he is. He gets 7. Okay? Next, we dump and draw. We can discard cards. We know he gets to draw up to 3. The hand limit for the north is 7. The commanding general is Reynolds. His hand limit is 7. That can vary later if we have a different commanding general. We have 4 cards. We can draw 3. Well, that's convenient. We just draw 3 cards and see what we get. Here are the cards we received. No events of any kind, nothing to worry about there. We just tuck these into our hand and we continue with the turn. So, all this stuff is done. We're up to General has options to move. And in this case, it's pretty easy. Generals can move 2 march circles on the road. So here's Reynolds. He's going to go 1, 2 to get closer to Gettysburg. There we go. Get closer to Gettysburg, continuing to march to where he's going to do some good later. That is his move. Now, he still has his 6 activation points, but there's no reason to use any of them here on his guys, because his guys are with him. All the First Corps is marching right along with Reynolds. We want to keep them right with Reynolds. However, the cavalry can be commanded by anybody, including Reynolds. He just has to pay the extra points because of the distance involved. So we can see there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5. He's 5 areas away, quite a ways away. But he has 7 points, so he can actually go ahead and pay those and move Beaufort if he wants to. But you know, at this point, that battle went so well that I'm not sure there's any reason to move right now. So I'm going to say, let's just keep him right there for the time being. And if the Southerners want to do that again, well, we just double dog dare them to do that again. So there's no battles, no further movement, no battles. Command cards. There aren't any. There's none in the Union hand. So this impulse is done. Play passes to the other side, starting at step 1. It's now a Southern impulse. So we begin with resolve events. The Southerners have 4 cards in their hands. Not one of them is an event of any kind. So there's nothing to do here. Activated General, A.P. Hill, is the only general. And there's no place to really for him to go. He's bucked up against Beaufort, and he's still bucked up against Beaufort. Set action marker to the leadership rating. Okay, we know it's a 6. That's just what he is. And discard and draw. We have 4 cards and a capacity of 6. That's easy. We draw 2 cards. And as we knew, the Third Corps would be one of them, and the Confederate Reserves Arrive card comes. Sometimes that's not a card you want. Maybe this was one of those times. So this card goes in the discard pile, and we pull a card from the reserve deck pile for the Confederates. And we drew this card, very similar to the one that the Union drew, because they're all fairly similar. There is variation, but they're fairly similar. They're generally 1-1s with some kind of conditional thing and a reserve formation. All right, these are discarded. And we're up to move a general, which we're not going to do. However, we could do this attack again. However, it was such a bad attack the first time. And I think we're going to wait because we're going to say we're not going to do anything here. Except bombardment. We can do a bombardment. All right, we spend 1 point to use our cannon to bombard Beaufort. So we're going to be shooting from here to Beaufort. Let's figure it out. So why would I do that? Well, okay, we're not going into the same area this time with the Union, so there's going to be no battle board firing going on. We're up to space 6. Play a command card. Well, guess what? We have a command card now. To be particular about it, we have the Third Corps command card. What this does on the first turn is that Pender is now available to enter the game. So let me go ahead and set that up. By scenario rule, when this Third Corps command card is played, and we just played it, Pender and his artillery are now available to move. But we do have the March 6 and Plan 4 ability on this card. Per the normal rules, March 6 is moving along march circles. Plan 4 is moving area to area, including the possibility of attacking. Okay? So, what we can do is to go ahead and step through the process. All right, so when you play command card, you cycle back to step through 2. However, unlike normal activations, you do not draw cards, you do not dump cards. This is a big difference between my prior playthrough and the way I play the game today. There was too much chaining, too many cards being drawn while the other side couldn't do anything. We don't do that anymore. When you play a command card, you get to do what the command card says. In this case, it's either March 6 or Plan 4, but you don't get to do a full card draw and have events happen and all kind of stuff like that. Are we going to move the general? No, we are not. He can stay right there for now. So we're going to skip down through that. We're going to here. What we do have is a choice between a March 6 and a Plan 4. The deal is this, okay? Pender is off the map in a virtual March circle well, it's the only one in the game because every other entry point of the game has an entry March circle that's named everywhere. I mean, you go anywhere on the map, they all look just like this, except for here. Here, for some reason, there's no March circle. There's nothing. So I'm saying that there's a virtual March circle just off the map that these guys can enter in column. They can enter, they could jump off the column and go in line. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go into the cash down pass. So we're using the Plan 4 option. According to Plan 4, they enter the map at the Cashtown Pass, leaders with them. These guys earlier marched over here. So what's going on here is that they are threatening a flank attack. When they're coming in from 2 areas and there's only one guy defending, that's a possible flank attack on this guy. That will have all kind of happy modifiers for the South, at least according to the way I play the game. So we're starting to leverage him out. We couldn't beat him out. We're going to try to leverage him out. All right, that is the end of the Confederate impulse, which of course just brings us right back up to the top for Resolve Union events. Do they have any event cards that they wish to play? Remember, mandatory ones would have been played by now. It's only turn 1 where you have those in your hand. They have no event cards. They're doing nothing there. So what's next? Well, the Union is going to activate a general. Well, gee, that's easy. Reynolds is the only guy that's here, so we're going to activate Reynolds. Now, remember that the 11th Corps card, the command card, is in the 12th position of the deck. So we really, really want to dump 3 cards. We got 7 in our hand now. Here's the Union hand. We want to be dumping cards and drawing 3 a turn so that we absolutely want to make sure that the 11th Corps is on the map at the end of this turn for when all the Southerners start coming in, when Ewell and Rhodes and all those guys start coming in the map. We want somebody there to meet them. So we got to get rid of 3 cards. I'm going to get rid of these three, essentially because I think the tactics cards are not as useful right now. There's not that many reserve cards out there. They build as turns go by, but right now the Southerners don't have any reserve cards in their hand. Remember, they just had the reserves to ride card. So next turn they'll have a grand total of 1. This turn they have a grand total of 0. And we receive a 3rd Division, looks like 2nd Corps card, which is not, it's not going to help us with key units, and 2 cavalry cards, the 2nd and 3rd Division. Neither one is Buford. Buford's card would be nice right now, but we don't have it. All right, so that's the card part. So we finished the 2nd phase where we've activated the general, and we did our card dumps and draws. Next, we're going to move the general. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, I think we're going to do this very first one. Okay, the general moves 1 march circle and may deploy troops into adjacent areas. We have 2 choices here. All right. We could take Reynolds and go. We could take Reynolds and go 1 and deploy, or we can go 1, 2 and stay in column. It is a temptation to go ahead and do that because we're giving up less space. But remember, we've got a whole bunch of guys coming in over here next turn. Not next impulse, but next turn. And the problem is that if you're too aggressive, you can find yourself going out too far, the 11th Corps getting all beat up, dying to get to be the named leader for the impulse, but yet you got the 1st Corps way out of position, and they need to do moves too. So you might get in a position where you have 2 corps, both of which need to do something, but you can only activate 1 guy. So let's play it conservative. Let's do the conservative move. Okay, what is the conservative move? He's going to go 1, and he's going to deploy. So we move Reynolds 1, and then we go ahead and deploy. Remember, everybody was with him. All we're having to do is jump out to adjacent areas and take the field. Notice that Seminary Ridge is also adjacent to here, so we could go to Seminary Ridge. Right now, I don't think that's needed. This is essentially a historical deployment, I think. 2nd Division is out here at Oak Ridge. 1st and 3rd are over here on the Lutheran Seminary, along with the artillery. And we got a little bit of a ways to Buford. So what I propose to do is we kind of slowed them down a little bit. They're threatening to flank us. So we've just finished the 3rd part of the impulse. Let's go to part 4. And we have not used any of Reynolds' activity points, of which he has 7. He always gets 7. And so we are now... that'd be 1, 2, 3 away. All right, so we're going to use 3 points. 1, 2, 3. We're going to activate Buford, and we're going to pull him back. We're going to pull Buford back to the Chambersburg Pike. The horse holders just automatically follow him at no cost. He's moving back 1 zone. Okay, he's getting out of that flanking position that could have caused him some pain and woe, and pulling back closer to the 1st Corps, who is there all deployed, waiting to support him. So that is what the Union is going to do this impulse. They have no other command cards, so their turn is done, and we're up to the Confederates. We now resolve events for the Southerners. They have no events. Activated general. There is only 1 general, A.P. Hill. We set his action points to 6, which is what he always gets. We dump and draw cards. We have 4 cards in our hand. I would say the Southern general strategy for the first turn, I think, is about conservation until you decide that you're not going to advance anymore, in which case then you want to try to blow through your cards. For right now, let's still say that we want to conserve cards. We have 4 cards in our hand. Instead of discarding 1 and drawing 3, let's just draw 2 and see what we get. No real help for this turn. We get a cavalry division. Cavalry doesn't come on until the 3rd day for the South. So there's no key unit match here. It's just a general kind of card that might be semi-useful if you match up with the skirmish. But Early's division, which is this guy, well, Early's going to come on very early next turn. So this card might be a good card just to hang on to. We may not have a use for it this turn, but we would almost certainly have a use for it next turn. So let's just put this stuff in the hand and see where we go. Based on what we have going here, we've just finished the cards. Now we're going to go ahead and see if we want to move the general. The general could jump on the march circle because there's no enemy units here. It really doesn't matter because even if he were on the march circle, the mill road does not touch that march circle, therefore it cannot benefit. So it really doesn't matter. We'll leave him right where he is, and we're going to go right to the fourth phase where we're going to spend the 6 action points to start moving stuff around. And I think that's all we're going to be doing is moving stuff around. So let's see. Well, we're going to spend, we're here. So we're going to spend 1 point to move Pender, 1 point to move artillery, another point to move artillery. Now we're not here, so we're going to have to spend 2 points per guy. However, we are adjacent to where the Buford is, so it's not necessary, but I think it would be more efficient if we were to go ahead and take one of these stands and pull him in. So we're going to spend 2 points to do that. We have 1 point left. That's just going to go by the boards. So the current position now is we're going to leave the one guy in the middle road. We're going to take the unfinished railroad because it was being flanked and it didn't like that. The leader, as the last part of the move, can for free move in with his guys, which he's going to do. Because we now own an area next to this march circle, it is now a contested march circle. So the flag comes off. 2 points. Move from the Union pile to contested. And because we took the unfinished railroad, the 5 points for the Cashtown Pass now move to the south. And we mark it as owned. So these markers double for ownership for both areas and march circles. Because we own all of the areas next to this march circle, we own the march circle. So it's no longer contested. However, now we're contesting that guy. All right. There's no battle board battles this turn. We have no command cards. The Confederate impulse is done. As normal, we start with the events phase. There are no events. The Union has no event cards. Just so that we understand what's going on, there are 3 cards left in the draw pile for the South. Once they draw into an empty draw pile, once they're forced to draw into an empty draw pile, that is the end of turn condition. The Southerners get to finish their move, the Northerners get to do one more move, and then that's it. So, since there's 3 in there, and we know that the most that they can draw are 3 cards, because that's AP Hill's draw limit, we know the Northerners are going to have 2 more impulses at a minimum. And we also know that the 11th Corps is the 6th card down, so that means we absolutely will be able to pull that card as long as we dump 3 and draw 3. So let's dump 3 and draw 3. We're going to dump the 2 2nd and 3rd Division Cavalry card. Oops. And let's say this guy, the select 3 card with the 5th Corps. We don't need the 5th Corps. That's not going to be key to us. They're not coming for a while. We're going to throw those 3 away. We're picking 3 more. Well, this is nice. This is very nice. We've got 2 11th Corps cards and a 1st Corps card. Almost too nice because we still have to dump and draw 3 next time. So we're not going to be able to keep all of these good cards that we might otherwise want to keep. We have the cards for all 3 of the 1st Corps divisions. We have cards for the 2 of the 3 11th Corps divisions plus 2 others. We're going to have to dump and draw 3, so that means one of these cards that we'd like to keep, we're going to have to get rid of. We've done the dump and draw. We know Reynolds is our one and only general right now. We've done that. General is not going to move. He likes it on that march circle that he's sitting on right back there. Right there. Oops. activate stands. He's got 7 points, as he always does. At this point, I think we got a choice. We could go ahead and face the music. Once again, the Southerners could be coming in from 2 areas and potentially subjecting Beaufort to a flank attack. In fact, they would certainly be subjecting him to a flank attack. Coming in from 2 areas, the area will have 3 columns in it. The Southerners have more troops. Those 3 things equal flank attack. And so we're not going to let that happen. Beaufort's got to go. Reynolds is going to pay 2 points to pull him back once again, and he's going to join the 2nd Division I Corps up on Oak Ridge. So we're going to spend those 2 points. And, oops, sorry, couldn't see that. Move back, you can see them on Oak Hill with the 2nd Division I Corps. They're all in a tight little nut, just waiting for somebody to try to get to them. That's it for the Union move. Taking a quick appraisal of the situation, we certainly need to continue bucking up with the 3rd Corps, but we don't have the entire 3rd Corps here, remember. We are missing one of the divisions. Anderson does not come in till the next turn. On the other hand, we have the entire Union 1st Corps supported by Beaufort's cavalry. Not a single one of them has a scratch on them. So what frequently happens at this point of the game is that, it's kind of time to pause. I don't think we want to have A.P. Hill diving in on these guys. They're going to have a lot of help coming in a minute. And so I think what we want to do is start accelerating the turn and getting this turn over with, getting in position for the attack in the afternoon of day 1. So in that vein, we have 3 cards there. I think we're going to dump 2, and then next turn we're going to hit the end of turn condition when we draw another 2. So what 2 do we want to get rid of? Well, I think that's pretty easy. We got cavalry, which we don't want. And I think Johnson is a candidate. Johnson, while he's 2nd Corps, Johnson doesn't come in until later in the day. He does not come in the afternoon. So we can get rid of him too. We're going to get rid of those 2 cards. We're going to draw 2 more. There's only 1 left in the draw deck. All right. Well, what did we get? Actually, something kind of good. We've got the heroic charge. That will come in handy, like having that the first thing in next turn. And then we've got Anderson's division card. Anderson comes in next turn, although it may be a while. The 3rd Corps command card has to show up before he can enter. So that's going to be random. We don't know when he's going to become available. We just know he's going to come in sometime next turn. All right. So we've done the dump and draw. Do we want to move the leader? In this case, we can. I don't know. It doesn't hurt. Put him on the march circle. We can only do that because there's no Yankees next to that march circle, but we're going to do that. He's got 6 points, and now he's going to spend his 6 points to move guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, and he can move everybody. And it's going to take 6 points to move everybody. He's got 6 points. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, the Southerners have moved up. We see we've had several march circles go neutral. So if we look at the holding boxes, we had several points of markers move from the USA box to the contested box. And the second thing we've done is that by putting Heath out to the By putting Heath out to the Fairfield Road, there actually is a little connection here between Fairfield Road and the Lutheran Seminary, which means that we can enter from 2 areas. That could spread out the defense into 2 columns. Always a good thing. The Union has no events to play, and they do absolutely want to dump and draw 3. Of course, Reynolds is the active leader. This is a no-brainer. These are not the 11th or the 1st Corps, so these are not going to be quite as useful for us right now. And of the remaining ones, the 2 11th Corps and the 2 1st Corps, this is the 2nd and 3rd Division 11th Corps. The 1st Division 11th Corps is better. Now, if you look at the stand on the map, it's identical with the other 2, but it's got a better card. The 1st Division of the 11th Corps has a better card. It has a nice 2 defense. These cards are why the 11th Corps is not that good. Okay, so we don't want to lose any of these first corps cards. We're going to go ahead and say take the third division. We're going to take the third division card. Do we want the select three? Well, I'll tell you what. We'll keep the select three. We'll get rid of the +1 on assault. At least this is an unconditional benefit. The +1 only matters if it's got an assault attacker. The assault cards tend to be with the first corps. Now, they can use a first corps card in an attack, that's true, but my guess is that they're going to want to come in with their key units, match up these to get the extra +2 for morale, for shooting, all that good stuff. So, let's get rid of this card along with the other two, and then we're going to draw our three. Here's the three cards we drew, and lucky us, this is Buford's card, 1st Division Cavalry. Glad we got this one. That could be very useful. This is a 6th Corps card, not very useful. It's an attack card. Maybe sometime, but not now. And here we go. Here's the Corps Command card for 11th Corps. This is the one we've been waiting for. But remember, Reynolds is the active leader. So let's go ahead and see what we want to do with him. I'm going to take us over here. And so we're going to mark events are done. Activate the general. We did the dump and draw. We're not saying end of turn yet. General gets to move. He's happy on that March circle. This is a really great place for a general because he controls, or he can contribute to all the surrounding. That entire Seminary Ridge area is his to contribute to. So that's a great place for him. We don't want to move him. He's happy. Are we going to shuffle anything around? I don't think we're going to move anything. I think the only thing to do, bombard, see if we can push back. I don't know. Let's see if we can push back. How about this Heth guy? Or how about, no, better yet, how about this guy? The guy that's hanging around on the flank, possibly. So we're going to shoot from the 1st Corps Artillery over to here. So for our shot, we have 2 figures in the stand. It started the game with 3, but he lost 1, so now he's a -2 with 2 figures left in the stand. Range is 1, so it's going to be -1. Terrain density is 0. There's 0 point area for defense. This is not a Confederate shot, so the supply card is not an issue. +1 for Reynolds for a total of -2. The artillery fire rating is a 5, so the Union needs a 7 or more to hit. Let's see what they do. They roll 5. So 5 minus 2 is a 3. That's less than the 5. That is an ineffective shot, no effect. At this point, Reynolds still has 6 activity points left. I think everybody is right where they need to be. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. The issue is this guy can continue and take the Seminary Ridge, which is possibly a problem. He's not that strong. We wouldn't want to give that up. We would have to counterattack to retake it if he were to do that. Or we could start repositioning now. All right, I've decided that we're going to shift to meet that threat. Again, the threat was the possibility of this guy moving from here to there, getting behind us. So we can't let that happen. So we're going to use a point to send the 3rd Division, stretch it out to Seminary Ridge. 1st Division has got the Lutheran Seminary, and I think we're going to go ahead and let Buford hold Oak Ridge by himself. So this is what we're going to do. That costs us 2 more points. We still have 4 left. We're not doing anything else. There's no battles. We're not playing any command cards. The Union turn is done. All right, there are no events to play. Heroic Charge is a battle board thing, so that event does not happen now. Of these cards, that means we have to dump at least 1 card. You always have to draw at least 1 card no matter what. To do that, we have to make room because we have a full hand. Of these cards, the only one that I would like to get rid of, I guess, would be Anderson, because Anderson is not going to be in right away. Early's going to be in early. Pender's already there. These are nice attack cards. These 1st Corps cards are nice. Heroic Charge, oh yeah, I'm keeping that. And just because I haven't seen it yet, I happen to know that the one card that's there is Heath. It has to be Heath. He hasn't come up yet. So yeah, the card we wanted the most was at the bottom of the deck. Isn't that wonderful? Let's do that. Let's dump this. Oh, look, it's Heath. There it is. Okay, so this is joining our hand. So we're going to have the guys that are up front. We got their cards now. That's a good thing. The guys that we have a couple other nice attack cards. We have the heroic charge, and we only have one second core card, but early's a good start. I mean, Rhodes would be good too. We would like to see that card, but this is what we have. All right. So we did the dumps, we did the draws. Question: we have 6 action points. What do we want to do? Let me think. Okay, here's our position after the move. Basically what I'm doing is I'm putting more pressure out here. Seminary Ridge is the most important of these 3 areas because from Seminary Ridge you can get to the copse of trees, you can get to Cemetery Hill. If you look real close, you'll see that from the Lutheran Seminary, it's no direct connection to Gettysburg, so you have to go around to Oak Ridge or the Seminary Ridge. So the Lutheran Seminary is kind of a dead-end area. It's not as important. Oak Ridge, well, over here we're going to have the second corps coming in, so I don't think the third corps has to carry the heavy load there. By note of correction, what I needed to do is I needed to discard 2 cards to actually draw on an empty deck. If I had only cleared up 1 slot in my hand, I drew 1 card. I met the requirement. The minimum required is dump 1, draw 1. That would not trigger the end of turn. I want the end of turn to be triggered. So I have to get rid of 1 more card, and then I would have drawn the 1 card. Having discarded 2, I draw 1 card, and then have to draw on an empty deck. That triggers end of turn. So I think I'm going to get rid of the roll 2, reroll 2 from the first corps. It's a good card, but heck, it's still going to be in the deck for next turn. I'll still get to draw it next turn. It's not the end of the world. All right, that's what we got. Confederate turn is done. Okay, this is the Union's last turn. I could have done the 11th corps last time. I'll do it this time. I had the card in my hand. I just didn't use it, but it's okay. It really didn't matter one way or the other because they're going to be there at the end of the turn. All right, so there are no events to do. First corps, Reynolds is the only one on the map. At this point, I don't have to dump 3 cards. So it's nice to work through as many cards in your hand as you can because then you can draw into fresh cards next time. Remember, you always put the cards that you reshuffle from the discard deck on the bottom of the leftovers from the previous turn, so you still have to work through those leftovers to get to the new cards. But I think out of this, the only thing I'm going to do is get rid of this guy. That's gone. Replace the card. Okay, I got a 12 corps card. That doesn't matter right now. I tell you what, I am going to, I know this weakens it a little bit, but I want to strengthen the Seminary Ridge. I'm going to move the artillery over. At least that will be a help, and we'll see how this goes. Okay. That will be the end. Oh, that is not the end of the turn. I don't want to do this a second time. Okay, we're done moving, no shooting. The artillery moved. Nothing on the battle board. Right here, we have the 11th Corps coming in via the command card right now. Okay, so they are going to do a March 6 move. Pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. And personally, I think if you go farther, you're overextending yourself. So they're just going to do 4 and then deploy everybody. Whoosh, the whole 11th Corps is going out there. Let me take care of that. Via command card, the March 6 move, Howard is scooted all the way across the map to the west side of Gettysburg. He has deployed into the adjacent area this entire corps. Now, York Road is another really important area, but it's not adjacent to this March circle. So if he gets somebody there, he'll have to move him there the hard way. He could put somebody in Oak Ridge with Buford there. I think Buford's enough to hang on to that place. So this is what he's going to do. He's going to keep his whole corps together, and he's going to put him at Barlow's Knoll. Barlow's Knoll. All right. With that, With that, turn 1 is entered. The morning turn of July 1st is concluded, and we do a little setup for the afternoon of July 1st. Okay, all of the cards have been mixed. I got new draw decks set up. For the Southerners, we have the second corps command card at the very top of the deck per scenario rule. It's going to happen right away that those guys, are the first division of the second corps is going to come in. That would be Rhodes. I did switch that from the rules as written. Rhodes, everything that I've ever seen, every other game I've ever played lists Rhodes is coming in first, so Rhodes is going to come in first. Early comes in one impulse later, and it is not contingent on taking any other area, such as says in the rule book. I think the problem is that if the 11th Corps stretched out and took that area, it might be possible to keep early off the board, and we're not going to allow that. So they automatically come in one impulse later. Let's see, we have Anderson coming in. Once the third Corps command card is drawn, that's just randomly mixed in somewhere in the deck. We also have Army Northern Virginia and the Battle Plan card, two really good cards. They're randomly mixed into the deck, as well as the one reserve card that we picked because we had the reserves arrive card that was played. That's normal. You pick up one of those every turn pretty much. For the Union, this is the Death Valley turn. This is the tough turn. All they have is Hancock, and that's just Hancock, no troops. And the only reason why he's there is to take over if Reynolds gets shot. We don't use any of the replacement rules unless and until Reynolds gets shot. If he's not shot, there's no reason for anyone else to take over, and there's no reason to have any command confusion. So we don't even put that card in the deck. Better events, there are no events to be played. We just have a heroic charge card, and that happens during battle, not now. To activate a general, there's only one general. That's still A.P. Hill. Ewell is not there yet. It comes when his command card is played. We have 5 cards in the hand. We can pick a card. And, oh, lo and behold, we pick second Corps. All right, because that was on the top of the deck. We knew it would be there. But since it hasn't been played yet, he can't be activated. We have already activated A.P. Hill. We did the dump and draw. That's done. General moving. Does A.P. Hill want to move? He's sitting over here. Does he want to go, say, over here? He doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to make that decision. He's not going to do that right now. So let's not do that right now. We are certainly not going to be attacking, but we can do bombardment. I think we're going to do bombardment. We have 6 action points. We're going to use 2 of them, or 1 on this guy, 2 on this guy, just to see if we can push some folks back a little bit. All right, I'm going to try to speed up some of the stuff that's not that important. The Union have no events. They dumped and drew 1 card. They now have Beaufort plus 2 11th Corps cards plus 3 1st Corps cards. So they're ready to be attacked. They're in good shape as far as that goes. All they did is with their activity points, they activated the 11th Corps. They took an artillery shot. They missed. So they're done. It's now up to the Confederates to do something. The Confederates have no events that they play. They were down 1 card, so all they did is draw 1 card. They got supplies arrive, which isn't necessarily the card they want to have, but it's the card they drew. The second Corps is the active Corps. We've got to get them in position, and at this point, early is there and can be brought in. So, second Corps only gets 5 action points. They're not as good as the third Corps or the first Corps for that matter, but they are good enough to bring guys in. So they're going to spend action points, and we're going ahead and take care of that. All right, with 5 action points, the Southerners were able to move Doles from Harris Ridge over to McPherson Ridge. They took the area. They took a march circle. So we got to move a point over. And they neutralized the march circle. We had Early will come in here. That costs another 2 points. They neutralize the march circle, take an area. They don't have enough points to bring the artillery in. So They move the guys on the left and the right. In theory, they could come in from three areas, but there's three units defending. So as long as everybody stays there, the 11th Corps will not be flanked. Um, that's what they did. Let's see what we do. What happens next? Let's talk about the Union position just a little bit. The Confederates have moved Second Corps up. They're ready for doing a all-out attack on the 11th Corps. The 11th Corps has choices to make. They could stay there. If they stay there, they could get hit from three different areas. Good news is that they've got three units to defend. It'll be a three-column defense if they stay. Odds are they will hold, but it's going to be bloody. It's going to be bloody. The 11th Corps is going to get pretty badly beat up, I would expect. An alternative would be if they stay there, the Confederates can start sending forces to the York Road and just try to flank the whole thing. Were they to do that and not and everything else stayed status quo, I think the 11th Corps would be forced to pull out and go on the attack, which would be, yeah, it's not a good decision either. Staying there is like, okay, we can have a whole bunch of guys jump on us, and maybe we'll win. But even if we win, we might lose just because we're going to lose so many guys. Or they can haul out and just empty out the zone and send everybody to the York Road, or more likely have to split somebody into Gettysburg because Gettysburg would be wide open. Double moves can happen in this game. There's the Army card is still out there. They could activate Second Corps if they manage to get the Army Corps. That would have a Plan 4 associated with it. That would be four guys moving and doing possibly a second attack. So we can't let them have a free ride into Gettysburg. It would also expose Beaufort if they just up and left. Meanwhile, down here, we've got our own problems. We have two guys with the cannon could come in over here. We could send everybody to get actually a flank attack on these guys. Well, coming in from two areas. Okay, not necessarily a flank attack, but it would force a two-column defense. Again, maybe the better chance of holding because they only need to win one of those two columns to stay. But more casualties, more hits, more guys flying off the board potentially. And they only get to pick one. They can only activate the 1st or the 11th Corps. They can't do both. So we're down to a hard choice for the Yankees. This is why I say a forward defense with the 1st Corps. If you push out that far, it can come back and bite you at exactly this point in the game, because then you'd be desperately trying to pull the 1st Corps back right at the time you were desperately trying to redeploy the 11th Corps. So let me think of what we want to do. Okay, let's just do things in order. We have 6 cards in our Union hand. We're going to pick one. Now this is an interesting card, the 1st Corps Command card. Now that means if we pick the 11th Corps to go, in which I am picking the 11th Corps, by the way, I forgot to say that, that means that we have a card that can actually move via the Plan 4 for Union stands from the 1st Corps. And there are exactly 4 stands in the Union 1st Corps. So in a sense, if by activating the 11th Corps, as long as I got this card in the hand, the 1st Corps has the option of activating and and attacking if they so choose. I don't know why they want to, but at least moving to pull back or to concentrate or to do what they want to do. So this is helpful, although it might be painful keeping this card in the hand because there's just so much that needs to be done. All right. I think what I'm going to do is split the difference. I'm going to move, the 11th Corps is going to get, I think it's 5 activation points. It doesn't matter. I'm only going to use one. I'm going to slide one guy. Say the 3rd, over to defend the York Road. I don't think we want to take the chance of giving them a free pass. Boy, that opens up all kind of bad possibilities. I think this is just what we got to do. No, we don't got to do. We're going to put 2 guys and the guns. We're going to screen. We're going to do it the other way. We're going to screen in front of Barlow's Knoll and we're going to defend over on the York Road. So we got some sacrificial lambs out there. That's how we're going to slice it this time. All right, the Union have done their move. They're not going to use this first corps card. Confederate move. Confederate's going to dump the supply arrive card and pick a replacement. They have to draw at least one card. They had a full hand. Pick kind of a semi-worthless cavalry division card. Where second corps is active. We've got 5 points to deal with, and we're going to go after Barlow's Knoll. We got to go after Barlow's Knoll. And how are we going to go after Barlow's Knoll? Well, we got 5 points. 1, 2, that's easy. All right, 2. The leader still here at Carlisle. He's going to jump over here if he wasn't. Then we're going to be 1 away from both these guys. That's 4. No, 2, 3. Still got 2 left. Still have 2 left. I don't think we need to use this guy. We can keep that plugged up. The only question is we can move the artillery out here by himself. He's not going to send anyone forward to beat up on that artillery. It would be suicide. Okay, so we've got 2 infantry stands plus an artillery stand coming in from 2 different areas, attacking a single solitary Union division. And the last thing is that the leader gets to jump in for free. So we're going to have Ewell there as well. Let's go to the battle board. Okay, so the situation is that in order to avoid kind of a strategic sort of flanking, where possibly units of the Second Corps, the Confederate Second Corps, could get completely behind the entire 11th Corps, we're sacrificing this one unit, pulling back all the others, so that we buy some time. We're going to have the Confederates using cards. Remember, cards are time. Time is cards. So try to get them to use some cards. Try to take a price for what's about to happen. So we have more of a tactical sort of flanking situation where we have a multi-column battle board. It's a 0 board, 3 columns. We have entered from 2 different areas. We have matched the requirement as long as we match them. So we have an infantry unit on an infantry unit. If we still have extra units, and we do, and we came in from more than one area, we came in from 2 areas, so we can use 2 columns regardless of what the Yankees do. We have Rhodes coming in on the flank. We have Early coming in straight. We have the guns and Ewell himself coming in front. The only way that the North can get out of this flanking attack is if they knock this column down. If they knock out the center column, then the flanking attack is called off because the anvil has crumbled, so the hammer doesn't get to come down. All right, so let's go ahead and play formation cards. That would be the next thing. Formation cards have been selected. This is what we have. So essentially I went with the key units for both sides. We have Early's division, which is the lead unit in this attack. For the South, we have the 3rd Division, 11th Corps for the North. Both are represented on the map. Both are key units for this battle. So let's see what that does. First step is to bombard. So we're going to have the South has cannons, the North does not. So we're going to have an unopposed bombardment. Let me go ahead and set that up. I'm going to show it to you over here for starters. We have the artillery piece shooting at the 11th Corps. It's a 2 figures in the stand. That's a -2. The terrain density is a 0. That's a 0. We have a shooter has a leader. That's +1. That's a +1 leader. We do not have any key units because it's Early's infantry division is the key unit, not the artillery. We have no attack factor on the card, and +3 versus line does not apply to the skirmishers that we are facing. So the net out, we have a -2 for the units in the stand, +1 for the leader, nets out to a -1. We have a 6-point attack factor on the artillery. So we're shooting for 2d6 -1, need a 6 or more, and again, the bigger the better because the excess carries over to the military discipline check. All right. We have an 8. All right, so it's an 8. So that means that it's going to be 8 minus 1 is 7. It is an effective fire because the minimum was 6. And we have a +1 roll. We have 1 in excess for the military discipline check on the 11th Corps. Let's go figure that out. All right, so we're trying to get to an 11 on the military discipline check. Now, because we have a flanking going on, the Union player has got to roll a red die with every die roll that he rolls, and you're going to take the worst of the 3 dice. Well, you're going to take the best of the 2 blue dice, and if the red one is worse than either one of those, you use the red one instead. So, okay. This is the roll. It needed a 12, so it's going to pass. But in this case, let's see. The 4 is worse than the 6, so the 6 goes away. This would be a 7 roll. And again, this is because of the flank attack. If it was in a double envelopment where it was getting flanked on 2 sides, you'd be rolling 2 red dice. It just keeps getting worse. So anyway, they passed this one, and now we're on to the volley fire. Now, as I said in the first attack that we had going on with old Buford earlier, I'm merging these 2 phases, all right? The defender volley and the attacker volley. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the way it was set up, you would have mutual bombardment, so each side would take a shot with an artillery. Okay, now the defender is generally going to be more effective than the attacker in those bombardments, the battleboard bombardments, and the Union is going to generally be more effective than the Confederates. So Union artillery can be pretty dangerous stuff to walk up to. And so they will eventually be causing hits and dragging down the Confederate units. So that being the case, the Yankees are generally going to come out ahead on the bombardment. Then you had the defensive volley fire, and if you had 2 defender units, you would have 2 units firing, taking full effect before the attacker got to shoot. And what I was seeing going on is that too many times there was not an exchange of casualties where they were wearing each other down, but instead the defender was doing too much damage and potentially forcing the attacker to be routing away or just simply be shooting ineffective shots. It was simply not balanced enough. So what we're doing is we are merging these 2 phases. The front rows fire at each other first. Both the attacker and the defender fire and have full effect, and then it's followed by a second rank of defenders if there is one, and that is unanswered. Okay, so we're kind of, instead of being mutual bombard, defender, defender, attacker, it's mutual bombard, attacker and defender together, and then defender by himself if there's a second row. All right, so let's figure this out, and then we'll take care of it. All right, for volley fire, we're going to take this, I'm going to look from the battle board rather than looking at my toe chart. We'll go back there to show you, but let's do it this way. All right, for the Union, they're shooting at a 4-stand unit, that's -4. They have no lost figures in the shooter, so that's 0. We're not shooting at unsupported artillery, that's a 0. Shooter fire modifier, that would be a defensive modifier here. There is none on that card. Conditional modifier, select 3, that's unconditional. That will allow them to roll 3 dice once. I don't think we'll do that now. So when we swing over here to look at how this all comes together, we have a 6 with a +1 and an 8 with a -2. So it's not that good for the Northerners. So let's go ahead and roll those dice and see how this happens. Oh my God. That's the Southern roll. That's the Northern roll. Guys, this is why we roll dice. What can I say? All right. Well, 2 plus 1 is a 3. That's an ineffective shot. 12 minus 2 is a 10. Compared to an 8 is an effective shot with a +2. Okay, so we have to have Early is got to do a morale check. Remember, this flank attack won't happen if they clean out this column. So, all right, so the South rolled a miserable roll. The North rolled an unconscious roll. The net result is nothing happened. This is going to go to the melee. Oh. All right, now 2 things going on here that I did not do that I should have done. One of which I can correct, and the other which doesn't matter because nothing happened too early. When the 11th Corps fired, they should have been rolling a red die along with the shot. Every time they roll the dice, they need to be including the red die because of the flanking attack that's going on. Early stood up to the fire, no hits, no harm, no foul, so it's not a problem. The other thing that we can now correct is that because Rhodes is coming in on the flank, and Rhodes was not committed to attack another unit earlier, he can go ahead and shoot. If Rhodes had had a battle in this column, let's say he cleaned it out in the volley phase, then he wouldn't be able to show up until the melee phase. But since he was entirely unopposed, he's going to be able to shoot right now at the 11th Corps. So let's go ahead and figure that out and take the shot. There's not much modifying this shot. We have 2 units in the target stand, or 2 figures in the target stand, and we have a leader. And now the leader does apply, even though it's in a separate column, because this is considered one attack. A leader in either column can affect this. I mean, we're given the benefits to the attacker because flanking doesn't happen that often. It's a fairly rare thing. It happens. It probably happens, a couple times a game. Well, here's one of those times, so it should be effective. Okay, so we have, let's see, 2 figures in the target stand. We have a +1 leader. The key unit is early, not Rhodes, so no key unit there. We have a -2 and a +1, net -1 with an 8 base. So it's going to be a 6 base with a -1. So we need a 7 or higher. Jeez, they're not rolling. They rolled a 3, they rolled a 2, and they rolled a 3. What can you do? I had a friend of mine once, he would always say, you can't fight the die. Well, I guess this is one of those times where you just can't fight the die. All right, so that's it for the volley phase, as miserable as it was for the South. Boy, they should have done more. All right, we're up to the play battle cards phase, so let's go ahead. We're going to be doing the play battle cards. So the South has first option of laying more cards on the table. Let's see how this goes. I'm thinking that because we have all these other advantages happening, that we do not need to invest any more cards in this attack. So passing the ranks is only going to have to be done by the artillery. The others are going to definitely be in this combat. We're going to roll, and see, his base is an 8. It's an 8 military discipline units, and the second rank makes it a 7. The leader brings it back to an 8 again, and we rolled a 6. So he's good. He's good. So the artillery is coming in. This is going to be a real drubbing. All right, that's it for the attacker must pass ranks. Now we're up to the actual melee. Let me go ahead and figure this out. Okie dokie. This is what we come to. All the figures for the Southerners count. The flankers, the second rank with the artillery, the front rank with early. It comes to 8 figures, so we have 8. There's no terrain density here. That's added to the defender's strength, nothing to do with the attacker. Fire modifier, we have nothing on the battle cards, no red attack number, no conditional that matches. It's +3 versus line, defenders, and skirmish. We have a key unit, though. Early is in this attack, so that's a 2. And we have a leader, 8, so that comes to 11. On the defense side, he has a 2. Two figures. It's a 0. It's a 0 defense for terrain. It's out in the open. We do have a key unit. That's 2, and no leaders. That's a 4. Now, the leader's actually here. I didn't put him in this. Because he could be here, he has to be here. In this way, we have leaders that aren't very good can still be casualties. A 0-point leader, if you don't force him to be in the combat, then he'd never get to be a -1 leader. And a -1 leader would never get to be a -2 leader. So we have to consider that Howard is in this combat, and if this turns into a flaming disaster, which I think it's going to, he will need to make a casualty roll. All right, as far as the dice go, we got some interesting things going on. These are the dice we need to roll. The Confederates have 2 dice, but if you look on the Union formation card, it's a select 3, so he gets to roll 3 blue dice. But because it's a flank attack, he also has to suffer a red die that's going to replace a good die. Okay, so we got actually 6 dice going. 2 of them are modifying the Union result. Let's see what we got. Well, at least the Southerners didn't roll some kind of crazy thing. A 7, I guess we'll live with. This is the Union roll. Okay, so the Union is going to say, okay, we're going to get rid of the 2. And the Southerner is going to say, okay, you're going to get rid of the 4. Those 2 go away. So the Union has a 4 result, and the Confederate has a 7 result. Move that over to the battle board. All right, so the Confederate has a 7 result. The Union has a 4 result. That means 7 plus 11 is 18 for the Southerner. 4 plus 4 is 8 for the Northerner. The difference is 10. Southern win. All right, now, remember that business about what it takes to do 2 hits in a melee? We did a differential of 10. The biggest stand that we have in the melee is a 2-point stand. We did at least 4 points of differential. That is going to force 2 hits and a rout from that unit. Well, 2 hits kills that unit, so it's done. Flank attacks, when they work and when they happen, can be quite damaging, as we see, as they should be. So they don't happen a lot, but when they do happen, they are effective. They tend to happen mostly on the first day when the unit density is a little lower. Of course, they could happen later in the game, but when things are very fluid and the density is lower, then they're going to tend to see more of them. Later on, when you have all kind of units all over the place and breastworks and all of that good stuff, then it gets harder. Then it's not so likely you're going to see any kind of flanking. All right, but we did this time, and so let's go ahead and get guys back on the battle board or get off the battle board and onto the map. We do have to check Howard. See if he's gonna make it through this. And I roll a 10, and Howard does in fact make it through. All right, let me go ahead and get the map reset up. Okay, the Second Corps attack has converted 2 March circles from neutral or contested to Confederate controlled, and we've also made 1 Union controlled March circle, turned it into contested. Howard is going to have to get pushed back. He cannot stay in a March circle adjacent to enemy units. He's going to go run and join his buddies next door. That is it for the Confederate attack. And at this point, I think that we've demoed the system enough rather than drag this out and do a whole, finish this turn. It would go on probably another 45 minutes, I have no doubt. I just simply like to talk a little bit about some of the other changes that I've made to the system. This is how I play the game. Everybody gets to choose how they do it themselves. This is what I've done. Now, let's just review what we see here. We see a developing Confederate attack. We saw Heath stub his toe on the way in, although Buford kicked him back initially, but really that was about it. It was more maneuvering after that. And historically, Buford did not take that many casualties. I believe it was less than 100 casualties that was taken by the cavalry. And that's pretty much what we saw here, very light casualties for the cavalry. They gave Heath a bloody nose, and then Heath waited for his friends to show up, and then he was able to maneuver his way up to the First Corps positions. First Corps hasn't really been touched yet. They're sitting there waiting for the attack. That is coming. I think that would be probably the next thing that happens. Meanwhile, the Second Corps has entered, and they gave the 11th Corps a really tough choice as far as what they were going to have to do. I mean, they could have been flanked up here. They could have been flanked here when there was nobody there. Instead, we could have moved like 1 guy there, and then possibly, could have been attacked and lost anyway. Doing what we did is we moved basically 3/4 of the Corps in, and we really sacrificed. One division just kind of blew up. That was the most likely result, but it didn't have to be that way. We're rolling dice. All kind of squirrely things can happen. But that is where we are right now, and I would expect this this scenario to continue all the way up into the copse of trees, all the way up to Culp's Hill, Little Round Top. It's going to be a tough fight, especially now that the Yankees are starting to take some hits. The actual hits are absolutely dead even, 2 hits on each side. 11th Corps took 2 hits. Heath took 2 hits. So it's not that the hits are out of proportion at all. It's pretty darn even. It's just that this turn, the Southerners are in a position to really start pushing, causing damage, making the Federals fall back to their much more defensible terrain past the town of Gettysburg. But that would be the rest of the afternoon, day 1, where we would see all that happen. Now, I do want to talk a little about what did I do else to change this game? What other things did I add? For one, I added breastworks. On the night turn, for the night between day 1 and day 2, and day 2, day 3, wherever the Union has troops, they can build up to 3 breastworks, as long as there's somebody there, that one of their guys is there, and that the base terrain defense is above a 0. So you can't build breastworks out in the middle of, say, Black Horse Tavern where it's a 0. Okay, you have to build it, say, on Cemetery Ridge, where it's Cemetery Ridge, Cemetery Hill's a 2. Okay, you build a breastwork there, it becomes a 3. What is the effect? It raises the terrain density by 1, so a 2 defense position becomes a 3. All right, what does that do? Well, it puts you on the 3 battle board. What does that do? The 3 battle board has only 1 column, so that means it's unflankable. You cannot flank a 3 battle board defense. All right, so right there you don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. The other thing we do is we add 1 to the morale checks, the military discipline checks of anybody defending in a breastwork would also get a +1. Okay, to their benefit. So it's a little bit harder to hit them. It only increases their defense by 1 in a sense, but it also makes them less likely to run. Guys like their trenches, they don't want to leave them. Other things, I've done some revisions on the order of arrivals on day 2 especially. What you're going to see, well, right here we've got day two, nothing's happening. The only thing the Yankees get is Hancock, the actual leader, in case Reynolds goes down. That's it. That's all they get. Immediately in the evening of day 1, you got the 12th Corps. It's going to be the top card. We don't mess around. If they survive this, the Confederates could still get 1 attack before they show up. Remember, the Confederates get the first move of every turn. So it's not uncommon at all to get at least 1 decent attack on a key position like Culp's Hill or Little Round Top, or Cemetery Hill. But it's a fight. I've seen that attack happen most games. I've seen it fail most games. So partly what happens is that the Confederate has exhausted their good cards by the time they get there, and perhaps the Union still has a card in his sack that will give him his +2 key unit modifier. But at least he's going to get the defense. He's going to get the +2 for the terrain if he's on Culp's Hill, for example. That tends to be enough to keep them in there. Say if the attacker does not have a good solid attack going, if he doesn't have his best attack cards anymore because he's already used them, then it's much harder, okay, to actually take a strong position. Other things I did is that on day 2, in the morning, you have the 2nd Corps. The 2nd Corps is also going to be on top of the deck. They come in right away. The 3rd Corps enters as per the scenario rules. They come in. They're randomly mixed into the evening, day 1, but they are forced on the map, free move, if they don't actually show up. So the 3rd Corps will be on the map at the end of day 1, no matter what. The 12th Corps comes in the very beginning of the evening turn on day 1, followed by the 2nd Corps, very beginning of the morning turn on day 2. The afternoon of day 2, the 5th Corps, we're going to roll a 2d6, and that will determine the position in the deck for the 5th Corps. So average dice means they'll be in the 7th position of the draw deck on the afternoon of day 2. Meade comes in as per the scenario rules. He's put in the half in the middle of the deck on the morning. When Meade comes in, that's when the artillery reserve comes in. Good guys to have. Good, solid, powerful artillery. They come in with Meade. Okay, they can be controlled by anybody. It's just like the cavalry. In fact, for shooting and stuff, you are going to be using the corps, not the army leaders, because army leaders were really there to position things and do planning. They were not conducting battles, neither one. I'll get back to that in a second. And then finally, in the evening, you have the 6th Corps. Evening, July 2nd, you have 6th Corps coming in. Okay, randomly anywhere in the draw deck, from the discard pile. For the south, you have Longstreet coming in. He's put in a random position in the draw deck from the discard deck, right? But usually for the Confederates, they exhaust all their cards, so it's the same thing really. Give me a random position on the morning of July 2nd. That's a change from the scenario book because they have them coming in the evening, July 1st. And then we do not play games with the other half of Hood. Historically, you should only get half of Hood, and as well as McLaws. Basically, I'm saying that there's a chance that Longstreet will come in late in the morning. He's already coming in late. That accounts for him waiting for Law, accounts for him, doing his counter march by the Black Horse Tavern and all of that. So we kind of randomize that in and kind of blend it together. Okay. In the afternoon of day 2, the Confederates get, what did they get? They don't get anything. They don't get anything afternoon of day 2. They get Pickett the evening of day 2, and then the cavalry comes in for both sides on day 3. However, I do not use that crazy rule where they actually come in behind the lines. That's nuts. I have the Confederates come in on the York Road, so they're not coming in behind the Yankee positions. That would, you've been playing this game for hours, and why do you really want to have something crazy like that happening right at the end just because of some die roll? I didn't like that, so I don't do that. All right. I think that's most of it. I guess. Oh, one other thing I did is the artillery you cannot use bombardment on the main map using a command card. So when you have a plan for the plan action, normally lets you move and attack. I don't let artillery do ranged bombardment because, frankly, the artillery reserve is powerful enough. They can get activated by the unit has lots of corps. You don't want them banging away because of command cards. They get to be activated once per impulse, and if they have a general close enough to pay the cost to have them shoot, then they can shoot. But we're not going to use command cards for artillery to shoot. They can go into attacks just like any other unit. They can jump into areas with enemy units just like according to the normal rules, but they can't do range bombardment. It would be too much bombarding. And as I said earlier, a defender who would have taken a hit from bombardment has the option of retreating one and then avoiding the hit. So, it can be ranged artillery is a motivation to leave, not something that's going to be killing a bunch of guys, especially at this scale. When you're dealing with divisions, each strength point is a lot of guys. So we don't want to have artilleries wiping guys out, say by the thousands. That's just not right. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to call it here. I hope I've helped. I hope I've made this game, gave you some ideas for making the game playable. I have played this face-to-face. My opponent basically was saying that he thought he was playing the North. He thought he was losing the entire game. He didn't think he had a chance. Didn't think he had a chance. But he kept kind of plugging the dike with his fingers as he went, and at the end he won. So. If you can go through a game convinced that you're losing, and all of a sudden at the end you figure out, oh gee, I won this thing, that's a good game. That's fun. So with all this wrap up, I just want to again thank you for sticking with me. If you could go ahead and hit the subscribe button and And, just go ahead and subscribe to my channel, see what else I come out with. I come out with things a couple times a month usually. And we'll go from there. So have yourself a great evening. This is Paul with the Oaken Knight, wishing you all a fun time at your game table. Take care. Bye-bye.